Hello, another uh, matchup guide for Blue Steel versus Lemon Lime. I don't think their list has changed particularly too much since set four, but it's always good to refresher. I of course went over it in a last video. The only real two new additions to their deck, and I'm not even saying these are staples. They weren't cards when the set launched. They were like, oh, I need that in my deck. Was the book card You're Welcome, which is you can put any location, character, or item shuffle it back into their deck and draw two of any ones themselves or their opponent, any player. I think it's utterly busted, especially allowing a discard deck to have removal and give card draw because sometimes your opponent will just empty their hand so you can allow them to have more cards in their hand for you to discard. And for such slow ink, for a 2 ink, and it's a song, I think it's utterly insane that card. I haven't seen it stuck in a lot of their lists, maybe because the list just performs so well and it doesn't really need it. I don't really know, but maybe we are going to see it included more. Yeah, I think it's very good, but I'm seeing it here and there. It's very hard to play around. Ward characters are good, but of course they have their Kida under the sea trick. Um, and then the other card is Anna, the new legendary, which is a 2/3, and for 2 extra ink, you are able to banish a character that has any damage on it, or you can make your opponent discard a card. So just discarding a card is a very valuable thing. And if you somehow get damage onto a Tamatoa or something like that, it's kind of hard. They don't really have steel, so they can't really throw chip damage out there. But if they manage to do it, they can, um, just take up big characters like Tamatoa or something like that without having to rely on the Kida under the sea trick. Yeah, but besides that, it's the same thing. They set up singers. They try and get Kida under the sea. If they can under the sea a lot of cheap characters, which they can do against things like Steel Song, if they ever get there, if they get set up properly. And yeah, when we play into that matchup, a good thing to realize is Cogsworth's great with Ward, but he is a two attack character. So just playing him out doesn't really get you much value. What I try and do is prioritize the SME out there, get this sort of aggressive questing going on. Um, and then sort of try and get bigger characters, Chiempel, Ariel. Now, all these characters can still be bottom decked by the Kida, but what we're trying to do is say that, all right, you want to set up singers, then sing Under the Sea. That's fine. You're going to set up your Ariel, your Prince John. That's enough, or an Ariel and a Diablo, or whatever it's going to be. Um, so what we want to do is make that a little bit harder for you and say if you're going to do that, you're going to have to do it one step further and use Kida. And the card like Ariel, why she's so good is they also have a card called Painting the Roses Red, which is can minus the attack of two characters on board, so they could use that instead of Kida. But with Ariel, it's saying you can't even target her, so you really do need the Kida, and you need to have Under the Sea. And they, even when she's exerted, it'll be very hard for them to take her out. They are including Sir Hiss a few times now, which is a pretty cool card. Which is a 3/1 with evasive, so they do have damage for it, but overall, get her out there is pretty good. You used to in set 4 as well be able to just ramp up to dime and just sort of, once you played your dime on the board, they didn't really have any removal for it, so it will sit there, and whatever you top deck, you can just dime tap, and sometimes they get you over the finish line. If you can play a little bit of disruption, dime taps and things, turn them sideways, all those things are really useful. That's kind of hard to do now because I think you're welcome, or even if they want to, the one drop Clarabelle. And I'm not saying they're going to use that card, but green now actually weirdly has so much removal for items. It's very good. So yeah, getting to the dime, it might be your only option, but it's kind of risky. The main thing that I say is very good is silence their singers. So keep them under the singing power of 8, even looking at shift lines. So shift a Diablo to get, if they have an aerial ready and they have a Diablo, make sure maybe you only have a Baboom or a Fire the Cannons. But yeah, make sure to do that. Keep as little songs as you can in your hand. Porp, Smee, anything on 3, and then mostly a ramp. Into a Hiram is just very good to keep your hand size. Sometimes you might be in a possibility where you can outdraw the Prince John. They will do aggressive. What their sort of discarding tactic is just aggressively hit you with a lot of discard. So, they'll 2-drop Ursula for a song. Then they'll sing Sudden Chill, play You Have Forgotten Me, and just try and burst your hand out. So if you can do the maths and say, all right, at the end of the turn, I'll still be, I have a Hiram in hand or something, you can play that out, get the card draw. Kind of wouldn't do that into a Prince John. Sometimes they'll just do this explosive discarding because, they want to get the cards out of your hand. But, if you can sort of battle it, that's good. If not, play your hands out and go into top deck mode. We also have like the biggest reset top deck for a discard, which is Whole New World. If we can get a grab your swords on the Prince John, it's like the easiest and most effective answer to that card. That's great as well. We kind of just want to make things awkward for them because, in a sense, they have a deck. If you watch the Toronto finish, there are lines in that deck where it just beats you. And he plays against a Steel Song level, who's just an amazing player. But the lines he did exactly the same will affect us. So it was turn one, play the Diablo, the one drop to get the hand knowledge. Turn two, you could Ursula if there were songs, and then you could shift Diablo, sing Bare Necessities to rip another song. So in a sense, you're thinning the hand by two. You're just making the hand really awkward. Those songs are probably ones you wanted, or you might not have wanted, maybe not. But in a sense, they've taken two cards out of the hand, and that's fine for them. And it's just, and then they're going to get card draw from the Diablo, and it's just a really rough spot to be in. They can even make the Ursula sing Sudden Chill following turns as well. And they can just sort of beat you down. So I found a lot of the time, because it is a very combo heavy deck, you kind of know how well they're going to perform from the turns they play. You know, if they get the one drop Diablo and then turn two they Ursula, you can kind of tell it's going in a bad direction. But as much as their deck does well, there's moments where it just bricks. So I feel this is a matchup for us where we don't really want to tech too heavy for it because we're not going to get much results from it. We just want to play into it and take our chances. So yeah, silence their singers, keep their board in check. You know, keep Diablos removed, keep Fritz John removed, Ariel away so they can't Under the Sea, and just keep playing things as much as you can. If they have a Bruno, sometimes it's not bad to keep one card in hand or a few cards in hand, which cards that could have been impactful on the board. But of course, it will make Bruno a bit more of a trickier play because they bounce a Tinkerbell, which sometimes they will do. They can't really do much from there. It takes a little bit of time for them to set up. I find on the play we're absolutely fine because they're going to set singers up, then wait for them to dry. So what we really want to do there is basically just silence the singers so they won't be able to sing. Yeah, it really is a matchup where I find out either 2-0 or I get 0-2, depending on how well they draw. And I just play my game plan out. I think about what the cards they'd have in their hands, like bare necessities and stuff like that. We're getting to a point as well with Blue Steel where it's very clear that we can't as aggressively mulligan. Now we need the ramp, but sometimes if we know they're going to be playing a heavy amount of discard, we can't really do much about that. We just sort of have to sit on the fact that if we mulligan five, the likelihood is we're going to get one song in hand, and that's going to give them some discarding power and start taking songs out of our hand. It's also worth mentioning Pete is quite MVP in this matchup. There's only two in my list, in both lists, in my Mickey and my Tippo list. But overall, we're finding Pete to be just quite powerful. You can basically say, because a lot of their deck is action-based things, they'll set up their singers, but then they'll play actions. You can say, right, just skip a turn, and hopefully you can achieve some work within that turn. And then if you have another Pete, you can be right, skip that turn as well. And maybe you could set up a singer for Sing a Whole New World. And just for the fact of the sheer value of what you're doing and making them having really unvaluable turns, you can just go over them quite high. But yeah, a lot of this I find is down to what they're playing. Ariel's becoming more and more MVP in all my lists. I'm finding that she's just a better thing than Tamatoa, mainly because of that ward and that 3-4. So she's not going to get under the siege. She's going to require them to play Kida, which just is another step for them. They're going to have the singers set up, then they're going to have to play the Kida, and then they're going to have to sing Under the Sea. So yeah, overall, I think you just play your game plan normally. Just try and amount a large amount of lore of your characters, and then set up a very strong board. Always be wary about Under the Sea. If you're at a point as well when you have the chance to sing Whole New World and you assume they're sitting on a good hand, please do sing it to reset your hand. But of course, that's always the gamble. If you think they've got the Keto or the Under the Sea in their hand, they have that last bit of the combo piece, and you play Whole New World, and they show you their hand and they don't have it. The sad thing is they're probably going to draw into it. Many times you play against red purple where you're like, you must have a be prepared in hand, and you wheel them and they've got like 3 rabbits, and you think, well, you were sat on so many uninkables. It was very clear you had uninkables in hand. But yeah. Same with this matchup. I think you just play it as you do. Silence Diablo. So silence as much card draw as you can. So yeah, getting rid of the Prince John and the Diablos are quite important here because they don't have things like built-in card draw engines like Hiram. They don't have a card where it's play a pop score, draw a card, quest, draw 2 more. They don't have those aspects of their deck. It's very much based around they have a lot of scrying. They've got Be Our Guest seals in there. So, yeah, if you can sort of keep them from discarding and setting up the Prince John for the card draw, that's great. Sometimes you are going to get into a point where it's like, right, I'm just going to have to set up Quill down, ink everything, and just throw a character on board and just play top decks until you win. And sometimes you can overwhelm them like that. Like I say, they are still reliant on lots of combo pieces being drawn. But yeah, I don't think there's much more I can add. I will mention there's another video on this channel where I talk about it in set 4, and I believe it's very much the same. We didn't get any new tools to really deal with it, besides the peak card that I'm mentioning here. And as I say, you can go up to 3. I wouldn't really go up to 4. I think that's kind of just going to affect your other matchups a bit too much. So yeah, I would stick with 2 or 3. But I'll go through some mulligan strategies as well. Oh, okay. I don't know what I've done there. So I'm going to go on my decks. We'll look at this one. This is the one I've got Mickey sleeved right now, so I'm kind of preferring it. Yeah, so looking at hand, if you're playing on the play, I'd kind of be a bit reluctant to want to use the quill. I think it's not the best card to be using right now, but it is still ramp, and I think I would keep it. This is kind of an aggressive mulligan to the point where I might want to do things like keep the Smees back, mainly because we don't want as many songs in our hand. So now we have a song-free hand, which is kind of nice. No turn 1 Porpsicle, which is pretty rough. But what we can do is, yeah, ink. I think I'd keep a Chimpo. Or, yeah, I'd probably keep a Chimpo. We could go to Smee and then see how this card is approaching us. Quill and get the Tinkerbells out. And then we can use the Hiram to break and then hopefully get some more card draw going. Or we draw a Porpsicle within those turns. But yeah, I don't think that's too bad. Like I say, you want to keep your hands free of things. With the bare necessities as well, it's worth mentioning that it's probably a good thing to ink the quill. Sometimes if you think there's a bare necessities coming, because they can take that as well, and then you've got no value out of it, you didn't even get to turn it to ink. But I think turn 1, if you know they miss something, they don't Diablo turn 1 and hand check. You know they're probably going to turn to Ursula. They're not going to hardcast a bare necessities. So I would say you're fine. But if they get the hand knowledge, they know what they have to play. So yeah, it's a real give and take. It's a real mind games of a matchup because they're going to want to use their discard quite effectively. So this hand, yeah, I think there's a lot going on that's good. I think I would get rid of that. Like I say, we're not afraid to draw cards that we're not afraid to draw songs, but I think we don't need to draw too many. So I would kind of maybe not aggressively mulligan, but this, and then we'd keep this for the Diablo. We've got a ramp that's a character-based ramp, which is quite nice. I think might even get rid of that. And I'd hopefully just try and get a Smee. But actually what I would try and do here is turn 1, get the Captain Hook out. I actually kind of wish I kept that other Force Sphere here because we could double Force Sphere on turn 2. But I didn't get Cogsworth, get a Captain Hook out just to start turning sideways or something, just to start getting lore. Like I say, they don't play much on the board that could challenge you, especially in the earlier turns, they don't. The Bavoom is always there safe. Sadly, they might bare necessities it, but you know, if they turn 1 Diablo, you come back, you can think about inking it and then playing the Fortisphere, which is kind of rough with bare necessities. But you know, I think you gamble on it and keep it for the Diablo. I don't think that's that bad of a play. And if they do have Shift Diablo, Sing bare necessities, like I say, that's just one of them nuts hands where what could you have really done with that? That's just really rough. And I will admit, if you are playing a Fire the Cannons build, it's kind of better to silence the 1-drop Diablo before they can get the shift. If they have to hard play it on 3, that's kind of a sucky situation for them. They don't get the card draw on that turn. It's pretty much all they're going to do on that turn. And then hopefully you can find a Grab Your Swords or another Baboom to answer it. But yeah, this is sort of how I'd approach it. Just sort of play the value in your hand. Try keep songs out of your hand. You do have a whole new world to reset the hand if you need to. Remember, you are just going to play bigger things than them. So if you're starting both with a fresh 7 and you've managed to hit ramp and get like basically hit ramp and get a higher ink value, you can kind of play to that value of I'm just going to be playing bigger and more important things than you are each turn, and they'll be trying to discard a 7-hand fresh of cards. And hopefully, you know, like I say, there's combo pieces, they could be hands all over the place, and once you wholly weld them, you've reset their hands, so they're not starting with the hand that they crafted from the mulligan. But as I say, it's kind of an awkward matchup. Try and get some early questing lore. The Smee is very useful. They won't really deal with it. They'll kind of let you just get the lore from the Smee. Tinkerbell's very good to get out there. They're going to want to start thinking about that. And if you have some cards in hand once the Tinkerbell is out, Bruno is not on their table. They'll probably use your welcome, which is still kind of rough, but I'm not actually saying that many use your welcome. Because at that point, what they might be trying to do is think, well, you've got a few cards in hand. Bruno's not going to work because it will probably turn it. Your welcome's going to be kind of rough because you're actually going to end up with quite a lot of cards, and you might draw another Tinkerbell, play another Tinkerbell, take out the Prince John. So yeah, like I say, just try and play big values. Try and play on your curve. I wouldn't prioritize Dime too much, but Dime's a very good closer here. To the point where if you can Dime tap a character and play at the same time, that's kind of where Bell would be quite good. But yeah, just try and keep their singers in check. watch out for the Prince John turn and try and think about the grab your swords. They might take in Hidden Cove. I'm not saying all of them take in Hidden Cove, but if they do, you're just gonna have to play around that as well. And imagine as well, Hidden Cove is a very good card, but unless what they're gonna do is turn one Diablo, turn two Shift Diablo, play Hidden Cove, move to it. It's always a very awkward turn for them to get the Hidden Cove set up. They play with such a low ink count and they just want to play like these big characters every turn. And if one of their turns is play a Hidden Cove, move to it, so they're great. So I don't think you'll see Hidden Cove as much as you think you will. Um, but yeah, overall, like I say, just play on curve. Try and remove their singers, keep their singers in check. Try get the questing lore in. Keep remembering that the deck is built around the card Under the Sea, so anything that has 2 or less attack, it's kind of rough. I feel like playing a Captain Hook for the value of its questing is not that bad for if they Under the Sea it, because it's like he's going to get some lore and he's a 1-drop and then he's going to go away, so I don't really care about that either. But yeah, that's sort of how I'd approach it. And like I said, I've done a video on this before where I mentioned it, and set 4 it didn't really change much in set 5.